Let me be brutally clear. A woman doesn't miss the man who texts her every morning. She misses the man who disappears without explanation and never looks back. Not because he plays games, but because he knows he is the game. You see, female psychology isn't triggered by your presence. It's exposed by your absence. That's when the mask drops. That's when you find out if she respected you or just tolerated you. And most men never see this coming. They chase. They over-explain. They beg to stay relevant. Meanwhile, she's watching silently, waiting to see if you'll break first. Don't, because when you stop giving her certainty, you start triggering her desire. And when she starts to feel the loss, really feel it, everything changes. Before we dive into the full story, take a second to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and drop a comment below telling me what city you're watching from. I read every comment because I need to know just how many men are waking up to this truth. This isn't about playing harder to get. It's about finally seeing what her reaction to your absence is really telling you. Now let's get back to it, because what you're about to hear could shift the entire way you think about female behavior. 1. When she questions your value. When you pull away, she won't react right away. She'll carry on like nothing changed, still replying to other guys, still posting selfies, still acting unbothered. But beneath that calm surface, something subtle begins. A question starts to creep in. Was he actually worth my time? See, a woman doesn't miss your presence just because you used to text her every morning. She misses you when your presence added value to her world. And if you were just another guy validating her, trying to please her, making yourself endlessly available, you've left no real void. You were noise, replaceable noise. But if you were a man who led with clarity, carried yourself with ambition, gave her direction, gave her challenge, now your absence hits different. It's not silence anymore. It's a vacuum. And here's where the mental spiral begins. At first, she brushes it off. He's just busy. I'll hear from him later. But the hours stretch into days. No message, no reaction, no chase. That's when something shifts. She starts to reflect. She replays conversations. She asks herself, why did I even like him in the first place? Was it how he talked? How he moved? The way he looked at me like he saw through my bullshit? And the deeper she goes, the more uncomfortable the reflection becomes. Because if you were a man who stood his ground, who didn't fawn, didn't fold, didn't flatter her for attention, she starts to realize she was never in control. She was being drawn to you, not because you begged, but because you made her feel something she couldn't explain. And now that you're gone, she's trying to measure that loss. She's comparing the emotional depth she felt with you to what she gets from every other guy in her inbox. And suddenly, every compliment feels shallow. Every wide text feels empty. Because none of them have the presence you brought. None of them made her earn it the way you did. Here's the brutal truth. The value of your presence is measured after you leave. And right now, she's starting to feel the contrast. Not because she's in love, but because she's realizing she had something she didn't understand until it was gone. Now, flip the coin. If you were always available, always pleasing, always quick to respond, she won't spiral, she won't analyze, she won't feel much of anything. In fact, she might feel relieved, because now she doesn't have to fake interest. Now she doesn't have to pretend to be impressed. You gave her so much access that your disappearance feels like peace, not pain. And that's when you know you weren't valuable, you were convenient. That's why I tell men this. Don't gauge her interest by what she says when you're present. Gauge it by what she does when you disappear. Because if your absence doesn't cause her to reflect, to question, to compare, then your presence never meant anything to begin with. 2. When her ego takes a hit, she may act like she doesn't care. She may post more, laugh louder, party harder. But don't get it twisted. Her ego feels your absence long before her heart ever does. Because here's the secret. Women are not addicted to men. They're addicted to attention. And when you're no longer providing it, her mind goes into withdrawal. She's used to being chased, used to the good morning texts, the quick replies, the little emojis that let her know you're still orbiting her world. So when that stops, when you stop checking in, stop reacting, stop feeding the attention loop, her ego doesn't get confused. It gets wounded. At first, she tells herself, "He'll be back. He's just testing me. He always comes back." But then a full day passes, then another. No call, no DM, no double text. Now the silence becomes personal. Not because she's heartbroken, but because you're not playing your role. You're not doing what every other guy does, chasing, pleasing, proving. You've disrupted her pattern, and that disruption is felt in her identity. This is where the ego reacts. She won't text you, not yet. Instead, she'll start signaling. She might post a thirst trap with a quote that screams, "Unbothered." She might start liking old photos of you or watching your stories without saying a word. She might suddenly engage with other men she never paid attention to before. But here's the twist. None of this is about them. It's all about you. She's not trying to move on. She's trying to get a reaction, to prove to herself that she still has access, that she still matters, that she can still control the narrative. Because if she can make you flinch, if she can make you reach out, comment, double text, then her ego gets fed, and she tells herself, "I've still got him." But when you don't flinch, when you don't respond, when you stay silent in the face of her performance, that's when the panic sets in. Now she's not just confused, she's insecure, because you've done what 90% of men can't do. You've withheld your attention. And that tells her one thing: you're not like the rest. Understand this. Ego doesn't crave love, it craves reassurance. And when you cut that off, she'll either raise her value or raise the volume. She'll test your silence harder. She'll try bolder moves. Maybe even message you something innocent like, "Hope you're doing well." But don't be fooled. That's not vulnerability. That's a probe. She wants to see if you'll break character. Because if you do, if you go back to pleasing her, she wins. Her ego heals, and the cycle restarts. But if you don't, if you hold your frame, if you keep living, if you keep her guessing, then she starts asking the question she never wanted to ask. Why isn't he acting like the others? And the moment she asks that, she's already beneath your frame, not above it. 3. When the power starts to shift. In the beginning, she holds the upper hand. She's got the attention, the validation, the control. You're chasing, and she's choosing. That's the dynamic most men never question, because they think that's just how modern dating works. But when you step back, without warning, without drama, you disrupt the entire system. And the shift begins. At first, she doesn't flinch. She assumes you're bluffing. That's cute, she thinks. He'll fold. They always do. So she waits, scrolls through her DMs, posts a little more, plays the same game, because she thinks you're still playing by her rules. But you're not. You're not reacting. You're not liking. You're not chasing. And that's when the power dynamic begins to bend. Because now, for the first time, she feels uncertainty. And women don't like uncertainty, not when they thought they were in control. She starts asking questions she's not used to asking. Is he really done? Did I misread him? Why isn't he reaching out? She checks her phone, not for new attention, but for your name. She reads into silence. She overanalyzes your lack of reaction, and the longer you stay still, the more power bleeds from her side to yours. Understand this. A woman can only feel powerful if she knows she can move you. Your attention was her leverage. Your pursuit was her validation. But now that you're unavailable, she's unarmed. And here's the thing about power. Once she loses it, she starts to panic. Or she starts to chase. Either way, the game flips. You're no longer the man trying to keep her. You're the man she's trying to figure out. And the more confused she gets, the more emotionally invested she becomes. Not because you're manipulating her, but because you finally removed the one thing that gave her control: your predictability. Let that sink in. Your silence isn't just space, it's strategy. Because when she no longer knows how to read you, she starts to reframe everything about you. Suddenly, you're not the guy who texts too much. You're the guy who's focused. You're the guy who doesn't chase. You're the guy who has options. And that, to a woman, is magnetic. Because now she's the one off balance. She's the one questioning. She's the one pacing the emotional floor. And if she was ever truly attracted to your presence, your leadership, your direction, your ambition, then your absence turns into a mental obsession. But here's where you win. You don't chase to win her back. You let her chase to win you forward. Because a man who can walk away without blinking is a man a woman will never see the same way again. 4. When attraction intensifies with distance. Here's what most men don't understand. Attraction isn't built by giving more. It's built by giving less, strategically. Because in a world where everyone is constantly accessible, the man who isn't becomes valuable. Scarcity is seductive, and distance, when done right, multiplies desire. At first, she doesn't feel it. She still has other guys reacting, DMing, liking. She still gets compliments, still feels wanted. But there's something missing. That rush, that unpredictability, that edge. And then she notices it was you who brought it. You didn't flood her with attention. You made her earn it. You didn't chase. You chose. You didn't orbit her life. You had your own gravity. Now that you're gone, she starts to feel that gap. Not in her schedule, in her emotions. Because women aren't addicted to men. They're addicted to the feelings certain men give them. And when that emotional intensity disappears, they crave it. Not because they love you, yet, but because they miss who they were around you. And that's where the pull begins. She starts to romanticize you. Not because you did anything new, but because you did nothing at all. And silence makes the imagination work over time. She replays the way you looked at her, the way you didn't flinch, the way you stayed composed when others would have cracked. It's not logic, it's emotional memory. And emotional memory is what fuels female desire. Understand this. A woman will never chase what she already owns, but take it away without explanation, without a meltdown, and she'll start chasing what she can no longer reach. It's the mystery, the detachment, the signal that you don't need her validation to function. That's what ignites attraction on a deeper level. Now here's where most men ruin it. The moment they sense she's slipping, they panic, they reappear. They start doing too much too soon, and just like that, the attraction dies. Not because she stopped liking you, but because you killed the distance that was building the tension. Let the space breathe. Let the silence work. Let her sit in the discomfort of not knowing where she stands, because that discomfort is what creates pull. Not consistency, not validation, not availability. A man who is always there becomes furniture. A man who disappears on purpose becomes a force. So while she's wondering what happened, you're not ghosting. You're growing. You're building. You're becoming harder to reach because you're becoming more valuable. And the more valuable you become, the more her attraction shifts from curiosity to craving. Because when you step away, you stop being predictable. And in the world of female psychology, unpredictability is power, sissy. 5. When she starts testing you. Attraction without control leads to fear. And when a woman starts fearing that she's losing control over you, she doesn't confess it. She tests it. Testing isn't always conscious. It's instinctive. It's her way of answering a question she's too proud to ask. Do I still have power over him? And the first test is almost always subtle. She views your story after ignoring your messages for days. She likes a photo you posted 2 months ago. She casually brings your name up in a group chat, not because she misses you, but because she wants to see if you still care. She's trying to gauge your pulse without exposing her own. Because if you bite, If you reach out, if you take the bait, she wins. Her ego heals. Her insecurity fades, and the game resets with her back in control. But if you don't bite, if you remain still, grounded, focused, that's when the tests intensify. Now she might send a random text. Hope you're doing well. Or worse, hey stranger, harmless, right? But behind those two words is a loaded question. Will you break frame? Because the second you reply eagerly, the second you act like nothing happened, you've confirmed her power. You've undone the mystery. So what do? You acknowledge without submitting. Short replies. No initiation, no validation, no emotional breadcrumbs. You treat her like someone from your past, not someone controlling your present. And that is what throws her off. She expected you to fall. Instead, you floated. Now she's confused. Now she's intrigued. Now she's hooked. But here's the danger. Most men misread tests as signs of interest. They think, she reached out. She must want me back. So they over-deliver. They open up. They invite her back in without making her earn it. And just like that, all the leverage is gone. Listen carefully. A test is not a return. A test is a probe. And if you treat it like a reunion, you've already lost. Because here's the cold truth. A woman doesn't test what she respects. She tests what she's still trying to figure out. So if she's testing you, you're in the gray zone. And the only way out is to stay in your frame long enough that she has no choice but to choose. No more games, no more crumbs, just action. And that action, if she truly values you, will come in the form of effort. Real effort, not tests, not signals, but genuine pursuit. And if it doesn't, then she never truly cared. She just wanted to know she could have you, even if she didn't really want you. So next time she sends that hey text, remember what it is. Not a sign she misses you. A test to see if you miss the old version of yourself. The man who chased, who begged, who folded. Don't be him. Not this time. 6. When she starts considering other options. Let's be brutally honest. Not every woman you walk away from is going to spiral. Some won't chase, some won't test, some will just move on, fast. And that's your answer right there. Because if your absence doesn't create any shift in her behavior, if she replaces you like she's swapping songs on a playlist, then you were never the one she paused for in the first place. This is where most men get wrecked emotionally. They think, how could she move on so quickly? They panic, they text, they try to prove they're the better choice. But here's the bitter truth. If she can replace you without flinching, you were never a priority. You were just convenience. Women always have options, always. So when you step back and she turns to someone else without a second thought, that's not betrayal. That's revelation. It shows you exactly where you stood, without her ever needing to say a word. And yet this is the moment where weak men break. They start chasing again. They spiral into pick-me mode. They beg for another shot. Not because they love her, but because their ego can't handle the rejection. But a man with value, he doesn't compete for attention. He doesn't audition for a role in someone else's life. He understands one thing. If she's quick to entertain the next guy, she was never emotionally invested to begin with. So what should you do if she starts seeing someone else? You do nothing. You watch. You listen. You learn. Because women often move on to test if you'll fight for them. But the second you fight for someone who replaced you without hesitation, you lose all self-respect. Let her make that move. Let her talk to the next man. Let her post the new happy pictures. You know why? Because when a woman jumps ship that fast, she's not upgrading. She's rebounding. And rebounds aren't about connection. They're about ego repair. Let her have it. Let her think she's winning. Because you're not in a competition. You're in a filtration process. And her reaction to your silence, her ability or inability to sit with uncertainty, her choice to replace you instead of reflect, That is the test, not of her loyalty, of her depth. Was she capable of bonding beyond attention? Did she value your presence for who you were, or just how you made her feel? This phase is where men either lose themselves or level up. Because once you realize that your worth doesn't drop just because she walked away, you stop trying to reclaim someone who never really chose you. A woman who can detach this fast was never yours. She was temporarily interested, and that interest expired the moment you stopped entertaining her. Let her go, not as an act of revenge, but as an act of self-respect. Because if she's gone, you didn't lose her. You lost the illusion of her. And that's the kind of loss that makes space for something better. This is the final phase, the moment of truth, where everything becomes painfully clear. After all the silence, the tests, the emotional pullbacks, the power shifts, a woman will do one of two things. She will fully submit to your value, or she will disappear. And there is no in-between. If your absence exposed her emotions, if your distance revealed your impact, if she couldn't shake the feeling that something real was missing, she will come back, but not the same way she left. She won't be passive. She won't be vague. She won't be testing anymore. She'll be clear. She'll respect you. She'll mirror your energy. She'll move with intention, not manipulation. Why? Because she's realized you're not another option. You're the standard. And standards can't be begged for. They have to be earned. But here's the trap. Most men blow it right here. The moment she returns, they get excited. They drop their standards. They fall back into old patterns. They reward her return with instant access, thinking they've won. But the truth is, you haven't won anything until she's willing to prove she belongs in your life again. She walked away. She tested. She considered other men. Now she needs to earn her place back, not through words, through behavior. You don't punish her. You don't play cold games. You simply require effort. Because a woman who respects you will want to put in effort. She'll understand the gravity of losing you. And she'll adjust. Not to manipulate you, but to avoid making the same mistake twice. Now let's flip the coin. What if she doesn't come back? What if she disappears? What if she replaces you and never looks back? Then you just dodged a long-term disaster. Because a woman who can detach without hesitation was never invested in the first place. She was there for the attention, the convenience, the version of you who overextended and undervalued himself. And the second you pulled that version away, she had no reason to stay. Let her go. Let her ghost. Let her post her new guy. Let her live her best life, because that tells you everything you need to know. You didn't lose a woman. You lost someone who never chose you fully. And that's not heartbreak. That's clarity. See, this phase isn't just about her decision. It's about your transformation. It's about proving to yourself that you can walk away, that you can withhold validation, that you can protect your energy, even when your heart wants to chase. Because in the end, the man who wins is the one who knows this. You never beg to be chosen. You never negotiate with indifference. You never hold the door open for someone sprinting the other way. She comes back. Great. She leaves. Better. Either way, you gain something far more valuable than her. Self-respect. Now, this is the moment most men dread, the ultimate truth you've been avoiding. It's when your absence speaks louder than any words ever could. What happens now reveals everything about her and about you. This is the part most men never want to face, because the answer is always there, hidden in her reaction the moment you stop showing up. Not when you're giving, not when you're trying, but when you disappear, quietly, confidently, without warning. That's when the mask slips. That's when the truth steps in. Did she reach out? Did she test? Did she fight to keep her place in your world? Or did she replace you like you were never there? This isn't about playing games. It's about reading signals that words can't cover up. Because attention can be faked. Affection can be temporary. But emotional absence, that always reveals reality. A woman who values you will feel the void. She'll reflect. She'll shift. She'll move with intention, not entitlement. A woman who never saw your value will disappear without a trace, no resistance, no regret. And that's not a tragedy. That's liberation. Because when you pull back and the world goes quiet, what's left behind is your answer. So here's the question you need to ask yourself. Are you the kind of man whose absence teaches her a lesson? Or the kind of man whose absence is a relief? That answer doesn't come from her lips. It comes from your frame, from how you handled her silence, from whether you stayed grounded or cracked under pressure. And if you've cracked in the past, now is the time to stop, not for revenge, not to win her back, but to rebuild the one thing she can never fake respect for: yourself. So no more double texting, no more chasing shadows, no more competing for someone who didn't even show up when it mattered. Let silence be your sword. Let distance be your filter. And let her reaction write the final chapter, not your effort. Because the truth is this: a man who understands the weight of his presence never fears the cost of his absence. And if any part of this made you pause, if something finally clicked, don't just keep it to yourself. Drop a comment, not to impress anyone, but because another man might read it and realize he's not alone. Subscribe if you're tired of watered-down advice, if you're ready to stop guessing and start moving different. This isn't about fixing her. It's about remembering you. And if that's the path you're on, I'll see you in the next one.